I grew up in a family that loved me, but as a child, I always felt like I was chasing my dreams alone. My parents were loving and supportive, yes, but it felt like they didn't truly understand what I wanted to achieve. They were always focused on what was in front of them, their work, their responsibilities, while I was trying to figure out how to make my wildest dreams come true. I had big ideas, big ambitions, but I didn't know how to make them real. I've always wanted to be an artist. From a young age, I remember drawing on everything I could get my hands on. My walls, my notebooks, even the back of my hands, they were all covered in doodles. I remember walking into a room and hearing my family talk about their day, their work, their routines. They'd ask me about my day, but when I tell them about my passion for art, their reactions were always kind but distant. It wasn't that they didn't care, it's just that they didn't fully understand what it meant to me. "That's nice, sweetie," they'd say, "but what do you really want to do when you grow up?" It always felt like they didn't get it. It felt like no one understood how much art meant to me. I thought maybe it was just a phase, that I'd grow out of it and eventually focus on something more practical, something more grounded. But as the years went on, I realized that this passion wasn't going anywhere. It was who I was. I kept telling myself that if I worked hard enough, I'd figure it out. But every time I hit a roadblock, it felt like I was facing it alone. Sure, my family supported me, but it didn't feel like the kind of support I needed. It felt like I was pushing myself with no one really cheering me on.
I didn't think about it much at the time, but looking back now, I can see how much my family had done to help me. They didn't do it in ways I noticed, but they did it in ways that mattered, ways that pushed me forward when I didn't know how to keep going. There were times when I thought about giving up, but then something small would happen that kept me going. Maybe it was a random conversation or a small victory, like a drawing I did that actually got noticed by someone. Those were the moments I'd tell myself, maybe I'm on the right path after all. But even then, I had no idea how much my family had been secretly orchestrating my success. It's funny how sometimes we don't realize what's right in front of us. Looking back, I see these moments, these clues that were always there, but at the time, I thought they were just coincidences. One of those moments was when I applied for an art scholarship in high school. I knew the competition was fierce, and I didn't really believe I'd get it. I thought, there are so many talented artists out there, what's the chance they'd pick me? But somehow, I found out I was chosen. I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought it was luck. It didn't feel like something I had earned, but like a random stroke of fate. But later, I found out that my parents had been working behind the scenes to ensure that I had every opportunity available to me. They knew I couldn't afford the full tuition for the art program, so they did everything they could to give me a shot at getting it. I had no idea that they had arranged for that scholarship to come through, that they had been secretly in contact with the school and working out the details so that I could apply for it. They never told me. They didn't even ask for recognition. They just made sure the opportunities were there and that I had what I needed to make my dream come true. And when I got that scholarship, they were proud, but they didn't act like it was a huge surprise. To them, it was just another step on the path they had been quietly building for me. There were other times too, like when I wanted to take that painting class in college. It was always a little out of reach financially, and I didn't know how I'd ever manage to pay for it. But somehow, the funds always appeared, and I ended up taking the class. Again, I thought it was just luck. But now I know it wasn't. My family had been working in the background to make sure that the things I needed to move forward were always within reach. They never told me, they never made a big deal about it. But now I see it clearly. They had my back the entire time. They just weren't the kind of people to make a lot of noise about it. And it wasn't just about money. They didn't just provide me with financial support. They gave me emotional support too. When I was feeling down about my work, when I felt like my art wasn't good enough, they were always there quietly encouraging me. They never said the words, "You'll make it," or "Don't give up," but their actions spoke louder than any words could. They provided a safe space for me to dream, to create, and to fail without feeling like I was doing it alone.
It's funny how we often overlook the small things. I never noticed the little sacrifices they made or the way they adjusted their schedules to make sure I had time to paint or draw. The way my mom would clear the dinner table quickly so I could get back to working on my portfolio, or the way my dad would spend hours researching art competitions and setting them my way. They didn't ask for anything in return. They just wanted me to chase my dreams, even if they didn't always understand the artistic process.
Now I look back and it all makes sense. All the coincidences that felt like luck were actually the result of their quiet support. They'd been laying the groundwork for me all along, making sure that I had every chance to succeed, even though I never asked for it. I don't think I'll ever truly be able to thank them enough for all they've done. They've shaped my success in ways I never saw, and they've given me something far more valuable than just financial support. They've given me the belief that I can do this, even when it feels like I'm doing it alone. If you're loving this story and want to know how my family secretly helped me chase my dreams, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned because the next part of this journey is just getting started, and you won't want to miss it. As time passed, I started noticing things that didn't quite add up. I'd had my share of small victories, but each time I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more at play, something I wasn't seeing. Every time I hit a setback, it felt like somehow I was still moving forward. But how? How was I managing to keep going when I felt like I was running out of options? It didn't make sense to me at the time, but now, with everything I know, it all adds up. One of those moments I'll never forget was when I thought my dreams were finally going to fall apart. I had been applying for art competitions for months, barely making a dent in my portfolio, unsure whether any of my work was good enough. I was convinced I wouldn't make the cut. But then, a few weeks later, I received an email. It was from one of the biggest competitions I had entered. I almost didn't open it. I figured it would just be another rejection. But when I saw the subject line, I froze. Congratulations on your selection. I couldn't believe it. I read it over and over. I made it. Somehow I made it into this prestigious competition. I didn't know how it happened, but it did. It felt like a miracle, like everything I'd been working for was finally paying off.
What I didn't realize then was that the entire process had been set up before I even started entering. My family had been doing things behind my back that I hadn't noticed, things that were helping me take these small but vital steps towards my dreams. It started to make sense when I remembered the random calls I'd get from my dad, telling me about art exhibitions in town or art galleries looking for fresh talent. He'd say, "Oh, by the way, I thought you might be interested in this," or the subtle hints my mom would drop about scholarships or programs I should apply to. None of it seemed strange at the time. It just felt like normal, casual conversations. But looking back, I realized how much effort they had put into guiding me without ever directly interfering. They never told me what to do or how to do it. They didn't need to. They just made sure I had the right opportunities, connections, and resources at the right time. Another thing that really stood out to me was how my family always seemed to know what I needed before I even asked. It wasn't just about finding opportunities. It was about creating the right environment for me to thrive. For instance, when I wanted to go to an art workshop in another city, I was hesitant. The cost was high, and I wasn't sure if it would be worth the investment. But my family didn't hesitate. They encouraged me to go. "You'll grow so much from this experience," my mom said, almost as if she already knew what was going to come out of it. I was nervous, but I went anyway. That workshop turned out to be one of the most life-changing experiences I've had. It helped me improve my skills, expand my network, and most importantly, it gave me the confidence to pursue my art with a renewed sense of purpose. It was moments like these, small things I'd chalked up to good timing or luck, that began to add up. Suddenly, everything I thought was just random was starting to look like a pattern of support that had been there all along, quietly shaping my path.
Looking back, I now see how my family was strategically creating opportunities for me. My dad would make sure I knew about competitions before the deadline. My mom would always suggest ways to improve my portfolio, even without directly critiquing my work. And my siblings, in their own way, would push me to keep going, even when I doubted myself. They were never overly involved, never hovering over me, but they were always there making sure I had what I needed to succeed, even if they didn't say it out loud.
And it wasn't just about giving me resources. It was about belief. Every time I doubted myself, I could feel their belief in me, even when it wasn't explicitly stated. Their faith in my abilities was something I carried with me without even realizing it. I remember a conversation with my older brother one evening. He said, "You've got what it takes. You just need to keep pushing." At the time, I thought he was being encouraging, but now I see that he had been watching me struggle, quietly waiting for the right moment to say those words, words that gave me the strength to continue when I didn't think I could. All of these moments, all of these little things were adding up to something I couldn't quite see. They were the pieces of a puzzle that I didn't even know existed. And as I started to recognize them, I realized that my family had been building my success, piece by piece, without ever asking for credit or recognition. They didn't need me to know what they were doing. They just wanted me to believe in myself enough to keep going. It was like they had a secret map, and they were guiding me along the way, but they never pointed it out. They just let me walk my path, while they made sure I had everything I needed to walk it successfully. And the craziest part, I never saw it. I was so focused on my own journey that I didn't realize how much their quiet support was shaping my future.
If you were wondering how this family secret helped me chase my dreams, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to keep following this journey. Trust me, the next chapter will reveal even more surprises that will change everything you thought you knew about support. Stay tuned. We came together. My family had been behind the scenes, shaping every part of my journey. They had been actively involved without my knowing in ways so subtle I never noticed. They didn't want to disrupt my independence or make me feel like I wasn't doing it on my own, but the truth was, they had been my silent partners the whole time. It was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't just imagining things. Everything that had seemed like a coincidence now made sense. The scholarship, the opportunities, the constant nudges to keep going, it was all part of the plan they had quietly orchestrated. I remember the moment when everything clicked into place. I had been struggling, trying to understand how things had been working out for me, how I had gotten these amazing opportunities, these doors that kept opening even when I felt stuck. At that point, I just assumed I was lucky. But deep down, I knew something didn't add up. Then it happened. It was a quiet evening, just like any other, when my dad, without warning, casually dropped the truth. We were sitting at the dinner table when he said, "You know, we've been watching you work so hard. We didn't want to overwhelm you, but we've been making sure you had every opportunity to succeed." I almost choked on my food. I looked up at him confused. "What do you mean?" And that's when it hit me. All the pieces of the puzzle I'd been collecting for months finally
Came together. My family had been behind the scenes shaping every part of my journey. They had been actively involved, without my knowing, in ways so subtle I never noticed. They didn't want to disrupt my independence or make me feel like I wasn't doing it on my own. But the truth was, they had been my silent partners the whole time. It was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't just imagining things. Everything that had seemed like a coincidence now made sense. The scholarship, the opportunities, the constant nudges to keep going, it was all part of the plan they had quietly orchestrated. For a moment, I was in complete shock. It felt like my entire perception of reality was shifting. I had always believed that success came down to my own strength, my hard work, my sacrifices. But I had never stopped to think about how much my family had been doing for me in the background. And then it hit me. My family had been quietly shaping my path all along. They weren't loud about it. They weren't asking for anything in return. They were just quietly, lovingly pushing me forward. My mom, for example, had been researching art programs and competitions for me without saying a word. Every time I was feeling down, she'd slip in a little suggestion about a contest I could enter or a program I should look into. At the time, I thought it was just her being supportive. But now I realize it was part of a much bigger picture. She had been planting seeds all along. And my dad, he was the one who'd find opportunities I never would have known about, like internships and fellowships. I remember him mentioning an art residency I had no idea about, and I thought, that's way out of my league. I'd never get in. But somehow I applied, and guess what? I was accepted. None of this was luck. None of it. It was all carefully thought out by the people who knew me better than anyone else, who understood the path I needed to walk, even when I didn't know it. They weren't trying to take over. They were just ensuring that I had the best chance to succeed. But it wasn't just about opportunities or connections. It was about belief. They had always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. When I doubted my skills, my work, my future, they were there, quietly supporting me, saying without words, "We believe in you, and we know you can do this." That moment at dinner was like everything I had experienced suddenly made sense. The pieces of my story, which had felt so scattered and disconnected, finally clicked. I realized my family wasn't just there to support me when things were easy. They were there when things were hard, when I doubted myself the most, and they did it in ways that weren't always obvious. It was a realization that changed everything. I had always thought that chasing my dreams was something I had to do on my own. But now I understand that true support often doesn't come in the form of loud cheers or obvious gestures. Sometimes it comes in quiet, thoughtful actions, the kind that help you move forward even when you don't see the hand that's pushing you along. And then it hit me. It wasn't just the physical support, the help with tuition, the art supplies, the scholarships. It was something deeper. It was the emotional strength I drew from knowing that my family was there. Even when I felt alone in my struggles, they had always been there in the background, believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I realized that the kind of support they gave wasn't about being loud or taking the credit. It was about quietly shaping my future, making sure I never gave up on my dreams. And even though I didn't see it at the time, that kind of invisible support was the reason I had made it as far as I had.
It wasn't just about the doors they helped me open for me. It was about the doors that kept me from walking in until I was ready. And that's what real support is. It's not always obvious, but it's always there, quietly guiding you in the right direction. If you're wondering how my family secretly shaped my success, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Stay tuned, because in the next chapter, I'll be revealing how they kept pushing me forward in ways I never expected. You won't want to miss it. It was one of those quiet nights when everything fell into place. I was sitting in my room, looking at the latest rejection letter, feeling completely defeated. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, I was always one step behind. I'd worked so hard, yet it seemed like the world wasn't willing to give me a break. I had just finished a project I thought was my best work yet. I poured my heart into it. Countless sleepless nights, pushing myself to do better, to reach higher. I thought, this time, I've really got it. This time, I'll get noticed. But as the rejection emails piled up, I started to wonder if I was chasing something that wasn't meant for me. That night, I called my mom. I didn't know why, but something in me needed to talk. She answered, her voice calm, as usual. She asked me how I was doing, and I just broke down. I told her about the latest rejection, how everything I did seemed to fall short. She said, "You're okay. This is just one step. You'll get there." I wanted to scream at her, but I didn't. It wasn't what she said, but
how she said it. There was this quiet confidence in her voice that didn't try to fix everything, but just let me know that I wasn't alone. That was when I realized she knew what I was going through. She had seen me struggle. She had seen me break down, get up, and keep going. And more than anything, she had always been the one to remind me that it was okay to fail, as long as I kept getting back up. What I didn't realize then was that her silent belief in me had been the biggest support all along. And it wasn't just my mom. I remember my dad's words too, from a conversation we had a while back. We were talking about my future, and I mentioned how scared I was to fail. He said, "You won't fail because you're not doing this alone." At the time, I thought it was just another one of his motivational speeches, but now I see it differently. He had always been there, quietly working in the background, making sure I had every possible chance to succeed. He wasn't loud or pushy. He didn't take credit for anything. But his quiet sacrifices had paved the way for my growth. Whether it was finding me opportunities or just letting me chase my dreams while he supported the family, his actions spoke volumes. I started noticing it in the most minor things. Like how every time I was feeling stuck, there would be a phone call or a message from one of my family members, just enough to make me realize that I wasn't in it alone. It wasn't direct help. It wasn't loud encouragement. It was a gentle nudge, a reminder that someone had my back. When I applied for that big art residency, I thought it was a long shot. The application process was rigorous, the competition fierce. I figured I wasn't good enough. But when the acceptance email came, I was floored. I couldn't believe it. I immediately called my mom, and I could hear the pride in her voice. "You did it," she said simply. That's when it all clicked. My family had been guiding me all along. They had been my silent supporters, constantly pushing me to keep going, even when I didn't see it. They didn't need to be in the spotlight. They didn't need me to thank them. They just wanted to see me succeed. My brother, for example, was always the one who would listen to my frustrations. He never tried to fix anything. He never gave me advice. But somehow just his presence was enough to make me feel less alone. He was the one who reminded me that failure wasn't the end. It was just another part of the journey. He didn't need to say much. Just having him around made me feel like I could keep pushing. It dawned on me then that family support doesn't have to be loud to be effective. Sometimes the most crucial help comes in the form of silent encouragement, the kind that doesn't ask for recognition but shows up when you need it most. I started to see my family in a new light. They weren't just there for me when things were easy. They were there when I felt like giving up. They were the quiet hands that had lifted me countless times without me even realizing it. And it wasn't just about the opportunities they gave me. It wasn't about the scholarships, the workshops, or the art exhibitions. It was about their faith in me, their belief that I could make it, even when I couldn't see it myself. That belief, that silent faith, became the foundation on which I built my success. What I had misunderstood for so long was that my family wasn't just standing by. They were actively shaping my path, making sure I was never truly alone in my pursuit. They never took credit, never asked for acknowledgement. They just quietly provided the support I needed, every step of the way. If you're feeling inspired by this story and want to know how my family's hidden support helped me achieve my dreams, make sure you like this video and subscribe for the next part of this journey. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter where I reveal even more secrets of how my family shaped my success without me ever realizing it. Background. I had always assumed I was alone on this journey, but now everything was different. It wasn't just the financial help or the career advice or the opportunities they had put in my path. It was the little things, the quiet, constant presence they provided. They weren't standing in the spotlight, cheering me on every step of the way. Instead, they were in the background, making sure I had everything I needed to succeed without ever asking for recognition. I started to think back to the many times I had faced doubt and uncertainty.
I had been through so many moments where I felt like giving up, where I felt like I wasn't good enough. But somehow, I always found the strength to keep going. And now I know why. It wasn't just me. It was them, my family, quietly making sure that the support I needed was always there when I felt like I couldn't do it alone. There were times when I thought I was making decisions on my own, but now I realize how much they had shaped those decisions. When I decided to move to another city to pursue my art, I was convinced I was doing it for myself, chasing my own dreams. But my family had been behind that decision too. They had been the ones to help me find the resources, the contacts, the right environment to make it possible. I remember the moment I told my mom about the big move. I was nervous, unsure of how she would react. I expected her to be upset, to try to talk me out of it, to tell me it was too risky. But instead, she just smiled and said, "You've always known what you wanted. You've got this." It was like she knew I was ready, even when I didn't believe in myself. It wasn't just my mom. My dad, too, had been quietly supporting me in ways I didn't realize. He never told me what to do or how to do it. But every time I felt uncertain, he was there with his quiet wisdom, always pushing me forward. He would offer practical advice when I needed it, but more importantly, he always let me know that he trusted me to make the right decisions for myself. And it wasn't just about making sure I had opportunities. It was about building a foundation. They made sure I had the emotional strength to handle the ups and downs, the failures and setbacks. They didn't shield me from disappointment. They helped me hold it with grace. Looking back, now I see how they taught me to persevere, not by giving me everything I wanted, but by letting me fight for it, knowing they were always there, in the background, ready to pick me up when I fell. They trusted me to chase my dreams, but they also trusted that I could handle the challenges along the way.
There were times when I felt utterly lost, like I didn't know what to do next. But every time I was ready to give up, my family was there, just enough to nudge me forward. They didn't push me or force me to follow a specific path. They simply showed me how to believe in myself, how to find my own way, even when I felt like the world was telling me I couldn't do it. It's incredible how much we don't see when we're caught up in our own struggles. I had no idea how much my family was quietly shaping my journey. I had no idea how much they were investing in my future, not just with money, but with their love, their wisdom, and their unwavering belief in me. And now I can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They didn't need to say the words, "We're here for you." They didn't need to tell me how much they believed in me. They showed me with their actions. They showed me by quietly guiding me every step of the way, supporting me in ways I didn't even understand. I started to realize that family support isn't always about loud declarations of love or overt acts of kindness. Sometimes it's about quiet encouragement, about creating an environment where you can grow without fear of judgment or failure. It's about knowing that even when things go wrong, someone is there to catch you, to help you back on your feet, and to remind you that you're not alone. As I reflect on everything I've accomplished, I realize that none of it would have been possible without my family's hidden support. They were the ones who set the foundation, who believed in me before I even believed in myself. And now, more than ever, I know that their quiet sacrifices and love are what made my success possible. I still can't believe how much they did for me without me ever noticing. And I can't help but wonder how many other people out there are quietly supporting someone in the background, making sure that person has everything they need to succeed. Sometimes the most important kind of support isn't the loudest or the most obvious. Sometimes it's the quiet, hidden kind that changes everything.
It's funny how life works sometimes. I spent so much of my journey feeling like I was walking it alone. I was convinced that my success was entirely based on my own strength, my efforts, and perseverance. I didn't realize until much later that I was standing on a foundation built by my family, a foundation of love, sacrifice, and quiet belief. Now that I understand it, I can't help but look back and think, how did I miss all of this? The signs were always there, the subtle encouragements, the quiet sacrifices, the belief that they never voiced but showed through their actions. They had been shaping my journey long before I even knew it, and they did it with so much love that I didn't recognize it as support at the time. There was this one evening that sticks with me. It was just after I had completed my final art project for the year, the one I had been working on for months. I had poured my heart into it, and I thought this was going to be the piece that would finally get me noticed. It was supposed to be the moment that proved I was ready. But when I submitted it, the rejection came a lot sooner than I had hoped. I felt crushed. I remember lying on my bed that night thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And then I heard my mom's footsteps outside my door. She came in quietly and sat beside me, not saying anything at first. After a few moments, she said, "You're still on the right path. No matter how many times you fall, you always get back up. That's what matters most." I was so mad at the time. I thought, she doesn't get it. This rejection hurts so much. But now, looking back, I see that her words were more powerful than I ever realized. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She wasn't telling me that everything would be okay. She was reminding me that I could get back up again, no matter how many times I felt knocked down. And that was the moment I realized something that had been in front of me the whole time. My family hadn't been pushing me in a loud, overt way. They hadn't been demanding results or expecting success. They were simply providing the emotional strength I needed to keep going, to keep believing in myself even when I couldn't. I look at my dad, who quietly worked in the background, never asking for credit. He was the one who ensured I had access to the right tools, the right environment, and the right people who could guide me. I never realized it, but he was the one who introduced me to some of the people who would eventually become mentors in my career. It was he who pointed me to art exhibitions, not because he thought I'd win, but because he wanted me to have the experience. It wasn't just about showing me how to succeed. It was about teaching me how to be resilient. My family wasn't there to make my journey easy. They were there to make sure I could handle the difficulties that came with it. This lesson became clear to me when I started my first solo project, the one that really launched my career. I was terrified. It was bigger than anything I had ever done, and the pressure was overwhelming. But every time I started to doubt myself, I would remember their quiet support. They never told me what to do, never gave me the answers, but they were always there reminding me that I had the strength to do it.
As I look back at how far I've come, I can't help but be grateful for everything my family did. Everything they sacrificed to make sure I was ready to step out on my own. They never asked for credit. They never expected recognition. They just wanted me to succeed because they believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. The best part of all of this is that I didn't need to do it alone. I thought I did, but I didn't. And now that I understand the depth of the support my family gave me, I realize how lucky I am to have had that silent partnership in my life. It wasn't just about the opportunities they provided. It wasn't just about the resources or the connections they made for me. It was about the love and belief that was woven into every action they took. And now, every time I stand in front of a canvas or take on a new challenge, I can feel their quiet presence, their encouragement, even when they're not physically there. It's as if their faith in me is something that has been ingrained in me, something that I carry with me every day. Looking back now, I realize that the greatest lesson of all was that family support isn't about loud declarations or constant intervention. Sometimes it's about standing quietly behind someone, making sure they have everything they need to succeed,
and never asking for anything in return. It's about trusting someone enough to let them chase their dreams, even when you don't know exactly where it will lead. And the most surprising part of all, they never told me. I had no idea how much they were doing, and that's exactly how they wanted it. They didn't want me to feel like I owed them anything. They just wanted me to go after my dreams without ever feeling like I was walking this path alone.
And as for my family, they still don't ask for recognition. They still don't expect anything in return. They just want to see me succeed. And now, every time I take a step forward, I do so with the knowledge that their silent support is what got me here. If you've enjoyed this journey and have been inspired by the love and hidden support that family can provide, make sure to stay tuned for more stories that remind us all that we are never truly alone in our pursuit of dreams. Like and subscribe to continue following this journey of discovery and growth. And remember,